Cincinnati Bengals are 9-4, and any monkey that was or was not on their back about the Cleveland Browns is certainly not there anymore. Let's break down how they got there.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, as myself, Jake Lisco, and the other host of the Locked On Bengals podcast, James Rapine, bring you daily coverage of the Cincinnati Bengals as they continue their playoff march. We're free and available everywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube. So hit the subscribe button if you're new, which I think some of you may be. Hit the follow button if you're listening on an audio platform, and join the first listen club, as today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, daily fantasy made easy. You can get a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 right now with promo code LOCKEDON at PrizePicks.com. That's promo code LOCKEDON at PrizePicks.com. James, the Bengals are now 9-4. They've won 5 in a row for the first time under Zach Taylor in the regular season. Anyway, I guess even in the postseason last year, they had that loss to the Browns in Week 18 thrown in. So for the first time ever. And it wasn't necessarily the prettiest start to the game, but I think they got there, right? It took a fourth down stop for the Bengals defense to keep the Browns off the board early. It took a little bit of time for the Bengals offense to get going as Tyler Boyd leaves the game early with what turns out to be a dislocated finger. T. Higgins sneaks onto the field, as Zach Taylor said, for a third down play, but really wasn't meant to play at all in this game with a hamstring injury, as the Bengals wanted to hold him out, even though T wanted to play. And shorthanded, the Bengals offense found a rhythm eventually and did enough. And the Bengals defense really stepped up after that first 2nd and 12 play where there's a big run for the Browns. Afterward, I thought the Bengals defense was very impressive in this game, and it was pretty cruisy from there. There were a few moments of anxiety, I think, judging from my Twitter mentions, James, but it was a pretty well-controlled game by a much better football team in the Bengals.
Let's go back to like the first thing you said before all the details. They beat the Browns. You know what I'm sick and tired of? Answering questions about how they can't beat the Browns. I used to cover the Browns. I'm aware of the Browns. I also grew up when the Browns stunk and the Bengals stunk, and the Bengals always beat the Browns. I was sick of answering questions about how Joe Burrow, who's probably going to go down as the best quarterback, maybe the best player in Bengals history, maybe, and that might be a little a little exaggeration right now, but maybe not. And I was sick of the 0-4 talk, and I loved his answer afterwards. Yeah, we're just 1-4 now, but it's 1-4. And so I think he did me a favor, did you a favor, did everybody a favor that has to talk about this team, discuss this team. And I know the players wanted to get over that hump there, not because they thought it was like some benchmark, but because they're probably just tired of hearing about it, if that makes sense. I don't think they feel any different about themselves regardless of how they played today, right? But they just wanted to get it done and get it over with, and they did. And the start of this game was super weird. It was very Bengals-Browns-esque.
I hated it.
That was the moment of anxiety that you would have, right? Because T's on the sideline, which was weird. He played the first play. He's on the sideline for the second play. It's a pass to Boyd. Boom. Boyd comes out and is clearly frustrated, like visibly frustrated. And then he's walking to the locker room, and you're like, what the heck? And then just like that, they go 3 and out. And the Browns start driving. 2 plays, 2 first downs. Deshaun Watson, first play, finds Amari Cooper. And it was like, oh, is it really going to be this kind of day where weird stuff happens? And even a few drives in, the Higgins injury, the Boyd injury. Higgins was supposed to be good. And I still think it's kind of weird. You know, he was okay and wanted to play, but the team didn't want to risk it, and so they held him out. But there was some goal line packages for him and all of that. That's all weird to me. But the bottom line is this Bengals team answered, and they were able to respond against an inferior team. By the way, spoiler alert, they were inferior on Monday night. It's no different. They were inferior last year when the Bengals lost to them here at Paycor Stadium. But they responded the right way, and they were able to get control of the game. And then you're right. It was cruise control. for the most part. There were a couple of times where, the door was cracked for the Browns, but they just they couldn't, slam that door open. And a lot of that has to do with this Bengals defense, which was really, really impressive. I thought Joe Burrow, the numbers don't look great, but made some great throws. The chase throw was awesome. The off-script play to Trenton Irwin to set up the Samaje Perine touchdown. I mean, that's when they really took control of the game, scoring back-to-back touchdowns at the end of the first half. It wasn't always pretty, but they got the win and they improved to 9-4. And you're right, 5 straight in the Zach Taylor era for the first time. First time since 2015 this team has done that. It's a good feeling for those guys in the locker room. I know they were all excited.
And there were contributions, as you talked about, from all of these depth players for the Bengals at the skill positions on offense, right? Jamar Chase had a huge day, obviously, and is the best player on the offense in this game. Joe Burrow, bit of a rough start, found his way, made some really great throws, as you mentioned, James. Jamar, dominant throughout the game, no matter who was over him. And I want to credit the Bengals coaching staff here as well. They got him into a position a few times where they got him one-on-one with John Johnson, the safety, and instead of Denzel Ward. But even if it was Denzel Ward, Jamar was cooking Denzel Ward too throughout this game. So
cooking.
Absolutely. Destroying. Like Denzel Ward had a very bad game. He got one big hit on Jamar, but that was it. He couldn't cover.
No, he couldn't. I mean, he was just wide open on the sideline. I was like, oh, he's got him. Finds him. Oh, he's got him. Finds him. Oh, he's got him. Finds him. And every time it was 21. And apparently Ward was traveling with him most of the game, according to Chase. So it was whatever you want to say, barbecue Ward, Denzel, whatever you want to say. It was that's what it was. Jamar Chase is a freak, man, and we saw it.
And like you mentioned, there were contributions from some of these other guys down roster, and this is really starting to exemplify the team at this point. They've had their depth tested this year, and they've answered that call more times than not, and that's going to happen again. We'll talk about Trey Hendrickson as well here, but Trenton Irwin, you mentioned the third down outside of structure to convert a first down. The flea flicker, by the way, perfect time for that call. Neither Myles Garrett nor Jadeveon Clowney on the field for that play. The perfect time to dial that up. And the safety just bites like it's, I don't know, he's bobbing for apples and he got the apple in his mouth. That's not a saying. I just made it up. That's pretty bad. But he bit hard on the run action, right? And that's the easiest flea flicker, one of the cleanest flea flickers I've seen in my life. Trent Taylor.
Yeah, they're never
one
like
catch
that.
in this game. No, never like that. Usually there's a pass rush, and it was really well protected. Trent Taylor, I thought his catch on the sideline was a catch. It was overturned. But beyond that, massive play to convert afterwards, getting loose in the middle of the defense and taking it for like 15, 20 yards after the catch on that play. Get a first down from Mitch Wilcox. You get some nice runs from Samaje Perine back in a backup role. He had a tough time as a receiver in this game, but as a runner, still pretty good, including that touchdown. And Joe Mixon, really great game coming back. So they got contributions throughout the offense. They found ways to move the ball, even without Hayden Hurst, without Tyler Boyd, without T. Higgins. Down 3 of their most important players, but they had Jamar. And Jamar did what he does despite being the only guy out there, which makes it all the more impressive.
Yeah, I just learned never to doubt Burrow and Chase. I think that's just another lesson. I mean, the touchdown throw to Jamar might have been the best throw of Burrow's career.
Incredible.
Like it was insane. It was so insane that Jamar didn't even know it was coming to him, and it stuck to his chest.
Yeah.
So much so to where it was like Burrow threw it, like almost placed it in Jamar's hands, like, hey, it's time for you to gritty now. And Jamar's like, oh, okay, I'll gritty. Like it's not like Burrow catches Chase off guard much. Very few times, maybe never until this throw. And that's the difference between having an elite quarterback and like an okay quarterback. Okay quarterbacks, when they're struggling, they can't make that throw. And Burrow, whose numbers were he started 4 of 12. It was just not in a rhythm, and they were battling through some things. He felt like he was off target a bit. Boom. That got him into a bit of a rhythm, and the offense obviously took off after that. Jamar Chase is a freak. Joe Burrow's a freak. You guys knew that. The Bengals improved to 9-4. Let's keep this rolling. We'll keep discussing this win over the Browns. It's been a while since we could do this here on Locked On Bengals, but we will keep it up next here on Locked On Bengals.
This episode brought to you by Turo, the world's largest car sharing marketplace. You can book any car you want, wherever you want it, with a community of local hosts. If you're in the US, Canada, the UK, or Australia, for all of our listeners overseas or in the Great White North like I am, you can book a SUV or minivan, a budget economy car, a luxury car for a special event, or test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on. And many of those Turo hosts can deliver the car right to you. Every trip backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions do apply. Forget those boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.
Today's show also brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a series of football podcasts that we know you're going to love. Think Like a Champion is available right now, and it's a new podcast from Russell Wilson and Audible. Russ is a champion on the field. Off of it, we rarely know the path to greatness, but each episode is going to feature interviews with Olympic medalists, NFL stars, business leaders, from Von Miller to Tim Tebow, and so much more. So head over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcasts. Available everywhere now. Audible, get in the game.
Before we hop over to the defense, James, where DJ Reader was absolutely incredible. And this is
He's also freaky.
Another week of us waxing poetic over DJ Reader is coming this week on the Locked On Bengals podcast, because he did inhuman, insane, freaky, whatever you want to call it, just incredible things on defense. And Logan Wilson had a nice game too, and we'll get there. You mentioned he started, 4 of 12, Joe Burrow?
Yeah, 4 of 12. I believe it was for 27 yards. I may be off on the yards, but that sounds right.
And then after that was 14 of 21. So found some smooth sailing after that. And a lot of it really was Jamar. You talked about that throw to Jamar in the end zone. The last note on that, you know how they say, like, the ball catches you? You've heard that saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the true moments of the ball catching you. He didn't see it until it was 5 yards away from him, said Chase. The window was infinitesimally small between the safety and the corner underneath, and it was just a perfect pass. And there were a few of those. There was a sideline throw, I think, that Greg Newsome was underneath to Jamar Chase that could have been picked if it was a slightly imperfect throw, but it was perfect, just over the outstretched hand of Greg Newsome and into Jamar Chase's hands instead. So while it wasn't perfect for Joe Burrow, I thought he was good in the pocket again for the most part. He settled in, didn't get sped up, although maybe was a little bit fast on a couple of those checkdowns to Samaje Perine early, and found a way to be successful. And a lot of people are talking about the batted passes, James, and it's a combination of a lot of things. People are really, I think, ready to blame the offensive line, or ready to blame Joe Burrow, or ready to blame these short dropbacks. And in reality, it's all of those things. And it's also, I think, the teams that are doing it against him are the teams that employ Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, both of whom are very, very good at this particular thing and very, very familiar with and spend extra time on the Bengals as a divisional opponent. So I'm not overly worried about it. 13 out of Joe Burrow's 20 batted passes as charted by PFF have come against AFC North opponents, and most of those are TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, to be totally honest with you. So if they can avoid that, those teams in the playoffs, which neither of those teams are going to the playoffs, this whole batted pass issue, less than 1 a game against non-AFC North opponents. And so it's hard for me to get too worked up over it, except that they've been very unlucky when it's happened. As Joe Burrow said in his presser after the game, the only way they're picking him off right now is on those weird batted passes or TJ Watt being a freak.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't think there's anything, given what they do, drop back passing team. They're going to throw it. They're going to do those quick drop. But it's what they do. And by the way, they have a lot of success doing it.
Yes.
They scored 23 points today and could have probably scored more. No Tyler Boyd, no T. Higgins, no Hayden Hurst. We've went through that. The offensive line wasn't great today. It was fine. Wasn't great. And they overcame a lot, and they still put up enough points to get a win. And Joe Burrow even said it. There's not a ton you can do. They have been unlucky, and that's why you feel them more. The Bengals didn't intercept the ones that Reader batted down today and that were tipped today. If that happens, then it feels different. And it just, BJ Hill too. and it just doesn't happen. It hasn't happened. And so it doesn't feel as significant when really that's the same thing happening. And the other part of this is I think that the Bengals, they've been protecting better. And so teams are trying to find other ways to disrupt this aerial assault that the Bengals can put on them. And so that's one way to do it is instead of rushing, pause, stop, and try to get a hand on the ball.
And we'll have more on the offensive line, of course, after we've had a chance to watch the all 22, the tight in particular, to see what's going on in the trenches. But the running game found a way in the second half to get going. It took a little bit of time again, but Joe Mixon uncorked a 40-yard run, and that's why you play Joe Mixon. He's got that explosive element to him. And Samaje Perine was pretty good in his opportunities as well, like we talked about, including a draw play that went for 14 yards and his touchdown run, which looks like everybody in the Browns thought he was tackled and the play was dead, and he wasn't, and he just snuck into the end zone for one of the easier after contact plays of his life, I assume. Joe Burrow found a little bit of success as a scrambler as well. And I thought Jonah actually had a decent game against Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is always going to beat pretty much anybody in the NFL from time to time, and he got Jonah early for sure. But I thought Jonah Williams played a pretty reasonable game against Myles Garrett, and La'el Collins might have had some struggles, and I think he did. But the most important matchup of the game in the trenches was probably Garrett and Jonah Williams, and I thought Jonah held his own. And we'll see if that stands up on film review. More than holding their own was this Bengals defense, though, James.
Yeah.
Logan Wilson, 17 tackles according to ESPN's box score. They got pressure to Deshaun Watson, who was uncomfortable and awful, frankly.
17 tackles, a quarterback hit, and a half sack.
Mm-hmm. And I can't say enough about DJ Reader in this game. So some guys I want to talk about in whatever order. You can pick the order, James. DJ Reader, Logan Wilson, Cam Taylor-Britt, Sam Hubbard had a nice game. Jesse Bates had that pick. I mean, a lot of guys had pretty nice games for this defense. To me, it starts with DJ Reader, but what about you?
Yeah, it definitely starts with DJ Reader. In really the defense as a whole. Let's just start there, because that was what kind of let the offense ease into life without T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. Because in like a span of like an hour and a half, they went from thinking they probably would have both of them to having neither one of them. And it was maybe 2 hours, right? But it wasn't much more than that. And so that's a big difference, especially when you only have 2 active tight ends, 3 active running backs, and you don't want T to open up as downfield or run really, really hard, essentially, what's the point, right? He's a receiver. If you can't do that, it's going to be tough to play. So this defense kind of stabilized things when they were about to go awry, and they gave up a couple first downs. And then also thanks to Kevin Stefanski for calling a go ball with Jacoby Brissett, which
that was,
it's just honestly, and I get it. Oh, single coverage, all that. He was open if the throw was, dude, you're having a guy come in cold and you're throwing a go ball. How about
that's
you just
how I felt about it.
Leave Watson in. Like, that's so stupid. But thank you, because that was their shot. If they get 6 there, it's like, oh man, and it's unraveling a bit. And instead, this defense said, nope. The third down stop on Nick Chubb was huge to get it to that 4th down play. And that'll be an underrated moment in the game at 0-0. And then obviously you force a couple of 3-and-outs after that and really allow this offense to ease into it and take the lead first, like we talked about all week being such an important factor. So no,
and
this
they finally did it.
Huge. They did it. They stopped Nick Chubb. 34 yards, 34. Crazy.
Very, very good game for this defense.
And they also got the stop, without Mike Hilton, who had to leave. That was the other part of the craziness at the beginning. Yeah.
That was very scary. Mike Hilton came back and played the rest of the game. Jalen Davis, when Mike Hilton wasn't in the game, over pursued on a read option or a keeper of some sort for Deshaun Watson that ended up being a first down. Anyway, Mike's okay. Hilton's okay. That's good news. Cam Taylor-Britt, I thought played pretty well in some big moments too. Wasn't perfect, but had some big plays in the 4th quarter and was a frequent target in this game. Jesse Bates coming up with a big clutch interception that helped to stall some momentum for the Browns at some point. So let's stay there. Let's stay with the defense a little bit. We've got a game ball to give out as well. And we'll finish up the show there. Today's episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, however, brought to you by PrizePicks, which I mentioned at the top of the show, if you missed that part, it's the easiest daily fantasy out there. You pick 2 to 5 players and whether they will score more or less in their PrizePicks projection, and you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. You can get those entries in less than 60 seconds too. Really quick, really easy. And they've got projections on any sport you watch, whether it is the NFL and the Cincinnati Bengals, since you're listening to this podcast, or it's the NBA currently in full swing, college football getting to the college football playoff, men's college basketball kicking things up. And with those safe and fast withdrawals, it's easy to use. Like I said, operational in over 30 states in Canada. Right now, you can download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up to play those daily fantasy sports. And you're going to get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, that's $100 free dollars. If you deposit $50, that's $50 free dollars from PrizePicks. Don't forget promo code Locked On when you sign up for an instant deposit match of $100 with PrizePicks.
Well, the holiday season is here, and Schultz & Sons is here for you. We have less than 2 weeks, right? And no, I'm not talking about Bengals, Patriots on Christmas Eve. I'm talking about Christmas, and you need to get the Schultz & Sons because they are the jewelry experts that are going to help you, last-minute shoppers out there, fellas, make her happy. They're a part of the American Gem Society, which is an exclusive club, which basically means they know anything and everything about diamonds and gems and anything in between that can help you make the right pick. No, they're not going to sell you on something. They're going to find what's right for you. It's all about fit, right? How Joe Burrow fits with his offensive line. Well, Schultz & Sons is going to find the perfect fit for you. Located in Fort Mitchell, just a few minutes from the bridge, right off the Fort Mitchell exit in the Kroger Expressway Plaza. It's easy to get to, easy to find, and just a few minutes from downtown Cincinnati. 2202 Dixie Highway. Remember, when it has to be perfect, it has to be Schultz & Sons.
Before we get back to how the Bengals dealt with Nick Chubb and this rush defense, this is a segue for me because my game ball, my Schultz & Sons game ball is DJ Reader in this one.
Oh.
And on the offensive side of the ball, it would be Jamar Chase. And maybe that's your choice. You'll get to weigh in a second here, obviously. But for me, DJ Reader did incredible things against one of the best coached, best schemed running attacks in the NFL, one of the best running backs in the NFL. The number of tackles that he made or enabled at or around the line of scrimmage was incredible, and he did it against some of the better offensive linemen in the NFL. Certainly some of the best coached, like I mentioned, with Bill Callahan, Brian Callahan's dad, running the running game in Cleveland. And Nick Chubb is just notoriously hard to tackle. The Bengals in general did a great job of this in getting multiple hats to the ball, as DJ said at his locker after the game. But Reader himself was just quintessential DJ Reader in this game. Mm-hmm. Almost perfect. And also had his share of pushing the pocket pretty well. Drew a hold from Joel Bitonio on a pass rushing snap, and also got his hand on a batted pass. And we've seen what can happen when you continue to get your hands to those passes at the line of scrimmage. Hopefully at some point that goes in the Bengals' favor a little bit too. But I thought DJ Reader was incredible in this game, and you could certainly give it to Jamar Chase, who was also fantastic. But I'll go DJ Reader in this one, James.
Sure. No, it's a good one. I'm not going to go Jamar Chase. I'm going to go off the script a little bit for our Schultz & Sons game ball, or my Schultz & Sons game ball. It's going to go to Zach Taylor.
Nice.
5 wins in a row, first time in his career. And this team does not get frazzled. It may unravel for a quarter or a half, maybe even a game. The Monday night game was a whole game. It unraveled, and they just couldn't stop it. But what have they done since? They've won 5 straight. They beat the Browns, handled them, the same team, that they struggled with. This is a team that has come a long way. And when I was talking to DJ Reader after the game, I thought about his rant after week 2, losing to the Browns. I think it was something like 35-30 at First Energy Stadium. And Chubb and Hunt ran all over this defense. And Reader was furious after the game. And I've never forgotten that, and what a long way they've come. And I asked him about that, but guess who was orchestrating this whole thing? Guess who was helping these guys get to this point where now, you lose T. Higgins, who would be, one of the best receivers on most teams, the best receiver on most teams. and you lose Tyler Boyd, who's one of the best slats in the NFL, and you find a way on offense, the defense takes a breath, and it doesn't unravel, Zach Taylor gets my game ball.
Yeah, it's a huge credit to the coaching staff in this game, I think. Defensive side of the ball came out ready. They were ready to stop the run. As a result, I think they gave up some big pass plays, especially on first down, which is where the Browns passing attack did most of its damage, but they did not give up a ton. There were some big plays for sure, but it wasn't consistent. I thought the quarterback for the Browns looked pretty frazzled throughout the game, was a little bit slow, wasn't seeing the field all that well. So you credit Lou Anarumo's guys there. You credit Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan, as James Palmer reported before the game, for the massive transformation of this offense from week 5 on, and including in this game, getting the ball moving and figuring out a way to adapt without those key skill players. I like that, James. That's a good way to creatively give credit to this coaching staff, and I like that game ball. Let's talk about some of the other standouts on defense before we get out of here. Cam Taylor-Britt gave up some plays for sure. Wasn't perfect, but in key moments in the red zone, man, he came up with some big plays, making life hard on Donovan Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper, getting some pass breakups. And in general, one of the things that we were most worried about with this team was the loss of Chidobe Awuzie, and I haven't really been feeling that for 3 weeks here now. And that's a testament to these corners that have stepped up in his absence. Yeah,
they've been able to hold the fort down. And one, thank goodness that Mike Hilton was able to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Two, this cornerback room has held up. And the thing that I was talking to a veteran about on defense before this game a few days ago was like, if it was going to happen where Cam Taylor-Britt was going to be thrust into a role like this, get all the growing pains out now, because playoff football is coming. But if he gets the reps now, he can be playoff ready. It's kind of like Cordell Volson. Remember, like at the bye week, they're like, we don't even really look at him as a rookie anymore. It doesn't mean he doesn't make mistakes, but they don't look at him that way. Well, you're getting Cam Taylor-Britt seasoned. So when the season is literally on the line, he can hold up. And I think today was a great test for him, because he was challenged. This defense was challenged against the Browns that first time around. And Amari Cooper was running free and doing all of those things. And they responded. Do you have any other good news before we get to the one bad news part of this game?
I mean, we talked a little bit about Logan Wilson. Had a very, very productive day in the stat sheet. Jermaine Pratt, who, by the way, after the game tweeted that he effectively tweeted that he doesn't like being off the field on third downs. And Akeem Davis-Gaither was getting in on some of the third downs in this game, which is something for another day to monitor and talk about. Sam Hubbard, I thought, had another pretty nice game. But, yeah. You know what? One last one. BJ Hill. I thought, wasn't DJ Reader in this game, but played really well beside him. But yeah, the big bad news on the defensive side of the ball, and we're getting here late, so apologies for that. The news came a little bit late too. Is Trey Hendrickson reportedly has a broken wrist. Will reportedly miss a little bit of time. He played through it. Sounds like he didn't necessarily know that it was broken until after the game. And so that is not so good. You pick the most important Bengals, right, that you hope stay healthy and you don't lose to injury, that aren't Joe Burrow. Obviously, Joe Burrow's there. But it's Jamar Chase, who missed some time. It's DJ Reader, who missed some time. It's Chidobe Awuzie, who they won't have back until next year. And it's Trey Hendrickson. And I think it's those four guys. And now at this point, it looks like all four of them are going to end up missing a couple of games at least this year.
Yeah, it's brutal, to lose him. And I had heard some rumblings that he had come out of the x-ray room and didn't look happy. And I'm like, I did, and I just, the post-game shuffle is wild. So I didn't have time to send texts or ask or go in the locker room and just see. But I even said hi to Trey afterwards, and you didn't see anything on his wrist. But, apparently that's something he's dealing with. We'll see. We'll see how much time he misses. Hopefully he's back for the playoffs. At 9-4, that's what you think of now. The other thing is Joseph Osai left with a shoulder issue. His arm was hanging. I think he came back in, but just something to monitor there. because that's tough too, because you'd look and say, all right, this is a big moment for Joseph Osai, but he's got to be healthy to rise up to that challenge. So yeah, that's a rough one. And not having Trey Hendrickson, who we're going to really see with this defense, because Cheeto and Trey, those are two valuable pieces. Cover and get to the quarterback, right? Those two guys do it better than anyone on this roster. So it's tough.
Yeah, and they've answered this call more often than they haven't. When they lost DJ Reader, they had a hard time with the run in a couple of games, I would say.
Yep.
But Trey Hendrickson has been the engine of this pass rush since he's arrived in Cincinnati. He's a guy that is often creating for everybody else. And they still have some good players, right? BJ Hill, DJ Reader, Sam Hubbard are all good players, but they're not that explosive pass rusher that Trey Hendrickson has been for this team in terms of creating for themselves. So it is something that will have to be schemed around. It will have to be monitored. And, the next couple of weeks, Brady is as good as anybody when he has time to sit back there and figure out what's going on and pick you apart. He's seen it all at this point.
He's getting torched now too. And so that's the thing, is it's going to be like, can they bounce back? I don't think they're very good, and we'll dive into that, but still.
Yeah. It was like 35-0 last time I saw as we're recording, and it might be
35-7 now. But
okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a backup. Maybe the next Tom Brady. I don't know. That'd be
Brock
a
Purdy.
Sort of fun
Brock
story.
Purdy's just balling.
Anyway, it's Brady, and then it's Mac Jones, right? And then, how bad is that wrist, Trey? Is it a 2-week injury or is it a 4-week injury? Because then it's Buffalo, and that's a place where you would really, really like Trey Hendrickson, not only for his pass rush ability, but he's been really good in contain this year. He's been good when they've had to ask him to drop out of those simulated pressures. And so, Cam Sample, Joseph Osai, Jeffrey Gunter, it's too bad Khaled Kareem is gone at this point. Time to step up, right? And that's what we'll be watching as we get some more news about this injury. But for now, the Bengals are 9-4 still.
Not yet. 7-1 pregame fist bump. Had to update the people. Brian Callahan and me, 7-1, baby. Boom. And so we'll see if that can continue. But yeah, 7-1, that's a pretty damn good record, I'd say.
Yeah. And of course, since the 0-2 start in general, 9-2. So they're on a pretty good stretch, 7-1 since the fist bump started, 9-2 since those weird first couple weeks of the season and the offense started transforming. And at 9-4, the Bengals remain in contention, as I mentioned, for the AFC North, certainly where things still could be decided in that final game of the season. Things are going down to the wire too. We'll have to see. We're recording this while Kansas City is somehow not in the absolute driver's seat against Denver. Denver has the ball down 28-34 right now. So we'll see what goes on there. Obviously, the Bengals play the Bills, so the first seed in the AFC definitely still in play for this team as well. And they will have to remain resilient, and guys will have to continue to step up if they hope to accomplish that goal. And we'll continue talking about it as long as it's in play. I like that storyline. I think that's a fun one. We'll have more on the Bengals win over the Browns, including some film takeaways coming up later this week as we continue to think about this big win, 5 in a row for the Bengals, and hoping to make it a few more. So make sure you check back on Locked On Bengals the rest of the week before we shift gears and start thinking Tampa and the Burrow Brady game. Until next time, Bengals fans, thanks for listening to the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.